Here's the text of Paul Harvey's 1978 So God Made a Farmer speech, which inspired the Ram Trucks Super Bowl ad that has resonated so much with the Americans. And this is the way Paul Harvey said it in 1978. His true and honest words. And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, milk cows, work all day in the fields, milk cows again, eat supper, and then go off to town and stay past midnight to the meeting of the school board. So God made a farmer. I need somebody with arms strong enough to wrestle a calf and yet gentle enough to deliver his own grandchild. Somebody to call hogs, tame cantankerous machinery, come home hungry, wait to have lunch until his wife's done feeding visiting ladies, and tell the ladies to be sure to come back real soon, and mean it. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody willing to sit up all night with a newborn colt and watch it die, then dry his eyes and say, maybe next year. I need somebody who can shape an axe handle from a persimmon sprout, shoe a horse with a hunk of a car tire, who can make harness out of haywire, feed sacks, and shoe scraps, and who at planting time and harvest season will finish his 40-hour week by Tuesday noon, then pane from tractor back, put in another 72 hours, so God made a farmer. God had to have somebody willing to ride the ruts at double speed to get the hay in ahead of the rain clouds and yet stop in midfield and race to help when he sees the first smoke from a neighbor's place. So God made a farmer. God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to tame lambs and wean pigs and tend to pink-comb pullets, who will stop his mower for an hour and splint the leg of a meadowlark, and had to be somebody who plowed deep and straight and not cut corners, somebody to seed, weed, feed, breed, and rake and disc and plow and plant and tie the fleece and strain the milk and replenish the seed self-feeder and finish the hard week's work with a 5-mile drive to church. Somebody who baled a family together with the soft bonds of sharing, who would laugh and then sigh and then reply with simple eyes when his son says he wants to spend his life doing what his dad does. So God made a farmer. I mean, people don't think there's farming done on Cape Cod.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I think you're right.
And farming done on Cape Cod is done on a small plot basis. You know, I'm very fortunate. I have, 30 acres, and there's another guy that's got 80 acres and another guy that's got 5, and this one's
Hey, listen,
got...
you're talking to the guy, right? Intensive, small plot, New Alchemy, that was, and you go to Cape and the islands. I mean, Martha's Vineyard, too, same thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Innovative, right?
Right, but you have to. I mean, my family comes from large ag production in the Midwest. They don't work as hard as I do. Honestly, God, now they have $1 million. Now they have $1 million. They have $1 million worth of equipment that allows them to work easier, and I have, $50,000 worth of equipment that's broke down and not running, or
But the nature of what we do is more labor intensive, right?
Right. But we can deliver a better product, and the world needs to know that. We need to get that out. I don't know how we're going to get it out. This is a start,
I think it's a start. I think, it's sort of interesting. A lot of people paying a lot more attention and putting a lot more emphasis on things like nutrient density to quality. Right. We may not be able to compete entirely on quantity, but there is no question that people are putting a lot of effort into...
But that's where the balance comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, my Swiss chard's, $7 a pound. So buy it for $4 a pound at Stop and Shop if you really like Swiss chard. But I can't tell you that case costs $7 to come from Arizona. I can tell you that case, there's the carbon footprint.
Right.
We don't need that. Well, let's see if we can get this going on.
All right. Well, that's perfect.
Hey, this is Miss Scarlett from Miss Scarlett's Blue Ribbon Farm in Yarmouthport, and I'm with Dawn, the creator of this fabulous place that you will soon have a tour of. My vision has come to fruition. Clearly, this is the first time that I've seen this amazing place. My vision a couple years ago was to donate tomato seedlings for folks coming to the food pantries to perhaps take home, put in a sunny spot in their yard. Don Milberg entered the picture and took it 4,000 million steps further and created a place to grow this amazing produce on the property. So now you have that part of the story. The second part, of course, is that Don also was instrumental in connecting our farm and Don and the food pantry with folks from the Orleans community that wanted to do community service. And so they came to our farm in the winter. They cleaned up for us. Stage 1 cleaned up, and then it went from seeding to transplanting their seedlings to then bringing them to this amazing pantry. So I'm pretty overwhelmed that this has come to fruition, to be honest with you. And I'm going to give you to Dawn, the creator of this, and I appreciate it. Hold on.
This idea came to be about 3 years ago when I was a board member at the Family Pantry, and the board approved the design that I did, and then we went to construction. We've had a great community service, a community support for this from contractors like the Robert Auer Company and Mike Mann from the Tree Company, Sassy Richardson and her family from the farm, and many others, including Rich Sylvia for the irrigation system. People have donated their time and materials, and now this is the beginning of our second full year of growing. Last year we produced over 4,000 pounds. This year, with more vertical planting and with better arranging, we're hoping to get 8,000 pounds of vegetables this year. We have about 36 fruit trees and about 80 blueberry bushes. We've constructed a cage for the blueberry bushes. This is all fenced in with 8.5-foot deer fence with a rabbit fence ground level, and then 18 inches and 1 foot across for groundhogs. So we're trying to make this as sustainable. We have not used any chemicals up here. We are teaming up with the capabilities with Orleans Community Service Group, with AmeriCorps, and Keller Williams, along with the recently Cape Cod Community College Community Service Program to staff what's needed to run something like this. The groups come in on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Saturdays and harvest and do some maintenance. And we're hoping this year in the fall to actually do row covering and extend the season right through November or December. It's been a great experience, lots of support, and as you can see today, there have been a lot of volunteers, and we couldn't do it without them.
Thank you, Don. So Susan, my friend Susan, thank you kindly, and you can begin the process with Farmer Jim.
I was commissioner 20 years ago, but you probably weren't even born then. And you barely look like you were born then. And then, so the last April came back on as commissioner for a number of years, somewhere in between there. I was director and worked at the New Alchemy Institute in Falmouth. I come from Falmouth, so you probably, yes. Yeah, sometimes I got to be careful when they say I look familiar. It wasn't the post office wall. They're probably just sort of walking around here.
Just a brief history.
Yeah.
Don approached myself a year ago plus about helping the community, and he was very adamant about it. You know, it was a community. It needed there was a lot of dominoes that needed to be put together, and he point blank said that there's a lot of dominoes that we need to put together to make this work. And I said, sure. You know, when you get your dominoes, when you start putting the dominoes, count me in. He approached Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau has been very active in trying to advocate for this project here. Last year he called at the last of the season and said, you know, we didn't get any plants, we didn't get this. I said, send the truck over, and he asked for 100 tomato plants. I think we sent 1,000.
300 to 1,000 plants.
Is that right?
Not just
Really?
tomato
Plants.
Right,
Yeah.
you know, and through the year, Don called me back. He says, you know, we picked about 4,000 or 5,000 pounds worth of product last year. And I said, well, that's great. You know, you're working in 1/3 of an acre of land, so that's really nutrient dense. And then he would come and he'd say, hey, you know, I'm wanting to do this vertical growing. I see you're not growing on the outside of the fences, which you probably should be utilizing the outside of the fences so you get everything going. But you know, and I knew that this was a key to a lot of what you advocate for the last 30, 40 years. You know, and to have this happen on Cape Cod is very important. So I'm going to let Don take it from here, and I'll chime in whenever I feel the need to pat all of you on the back, because it must be great. I must say this: it must be great and relieving for you to get out of your office and have to deal with phone calls and everything else to come and walk through the gardens, because you know gardens is a very calming effect. You know, and this is a farm.
It's usually the highlight.
You're up, Don. Lead us through.
I was a board member for 6 years and approached the board. They embraced the idea of a garden. There was a garden, but it was a smaller plot garden. Mary and I worked together for. Thank you. A couple of years, and we kept saying, I'm glad to help, and you know, those things, you didn't want to step on anybody's toes, and one thing led to another, but the board looked at the idea and were excited about it. They looked at the plan that was done up, and they were excited about it. They approved it. We approached some community people that have the means to do the work that we needed to have done. So the Robert Auer Company has been very, very supportive. They came in after Mike Mann of the tree company came in and cut all the trees down. The stumps were left. Mike Mann did the chipping and left chips.
That was about 3 years, 3 or 4 years?
This is the second full year.
Okay.
The first year was under construction, got in plants in late, resources were just being tapped. So we didn't even keep track of weight and numbers that much the first year.
What we had was fabulous.
And we then took that, and a lot of records were kept. So not everything, but enough to help us the second year. And then we were lucky enough to team up with Jeff Eldridge and Steve Coleman, and we came up with the Eldridge system, which was wider beds, more plantings per bed. And so then we revamped the design, not necessarily the design, but the layout. And then it required the irrigation to be more than tweaked, actually redone. So last year we did a lot of hand watering, but this year the irrigation is all up and running thanks to Rich Sylvia and Sylvia Irrigation. We have had great support from all aspects, from capabilities to the farm, Cape and the Islands Farm Bureau, to the Orleans Community Service Program. We are just tapped into Russ Norton and his master gardeners, and with the extension program. And because of that, I just met up with a gentleman named John French, a master gardener, who has been teaching English at Four Seas, who is a very passionate gardener, but he also happens to be involved, or heads up, the community service program at the Four Seas. So he said he has 150 students in the spring and the fall that are required 12 hours of service into the community. So he assured me that a good part of their time can be over here. So what's been happening is that through the success of this and through the resources that we have been developing, it developed more. And so my relationship with Miss Scarlett's farm evolved. Actually, it started off with Leo. Hey,
Leo!
I approached Leo.
Leave the back gate open. I know who's going to walk in.
Well,
I snuck in right before they closed it.
I know you did. How you doing?
How you doing?
Hey, Leo.
Good. Haven't seen you in a while.
Actually, I approached Leo the first year for cow manure.
That makes sense.
Thank you, Greg. Open the gate and you just let it right out. But Leo was great because he networked and suggested this and suggested that. And
I got delegated.
So I should be thanking you.
And that's right. Then Jim and Susan we connected with, and that's evolved. And then the Orleans Community Service Group teamed up with Miss Scarlett's farm, and we were very, very fortunate because the biggest thing, there are over 3,000 plants here, and to try to go to garden centers and suppliers here, there, which we did for the first 2 years, was time consuming and very, very tough. But luckily this year, teaming up, we were able to take and tray everything up, put seeds in them. Jim and his group heated it and watered and fertilized. We went over, transplanted, and then we went over and took the plants and came over here and planted them. So we have over 500 tomato plants.
Right, and you have AmeriCorps involved.
That's right. Yeah. AmeriCorps does come 2 to 3 times a year, and they have 10 to 12 young ladies and men, and they work about 7-8 hour day. And those things, particularly the projects, putting the garden together and putting the raised beds, or putting up, we have a lot of trellises around here, constructing the trellises, take manpower like that. And AmeriCorps has been very, very good. And we've worked through, a lot of times, Patty Watson, in the initial year or two, and then Patty and Mary to actually connect and tell them what days we would like, and then they come up and let us know what we can have.
Do a
tour.
Absolutely, would love to see. And it's great, you talk about all these connections, but we've got this natural thing with food, right? Because potentially everybody is connected, right? Because you're talking about such an instance. Yeah, absolutely. So what's the area? How much?
The area is less than 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
But then you take out the walkways, you take out the blueberry cage, and you take out the compost bins, and there's about 13,000 square feet.
Yep. Okay.
So we're dealing with about a third of an acre. And that third of an acre with, again, the help of the Eldridge Farm, help with Jim, and Russ Norton has been a huge help. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, good. Excellent. Yep.
The coordination and the teamwork, and it's also very good because you don't wear out your welcome.
Yeah.
So
you can spread it.
You spread it out.
You can spread it out. Yeah.
And I call Russ and explain a dilemma, and all of a sudden they get 5 pages of documentation and charts, and I'm saying, which
came on recently because I remember at the Farm Bureau. Yeah,
it's been about a year.
Absolutely. Yep.
And which is great. And the same thing, I give Jim a call and ask what's going on or what's needed. And as we mentioned, we needed 200 or 300, and we got maybe 1,000 plants, and that's how generous that they've been. And Jeff was nice enough to actually have his greenhouse superintendent, manager, Steve Coleman, sit on our committee for a little while and guide us along, because we have an experience and we have some abilities, but in cases like this, there are a lot of specialties.
Yeah,
and I don't, I'm a landscape designer. I've done landscape contracting for 31 years, but certain specialties, you pull in the people who are the best.
And we're lucky, we certainly have them.
We have 36 espaliated fruit trees here. Bartlett Tree Company has been nice enough this is the 3rd year, to take care of an IPM program and help prune in the wintertime. So they take care of the blueberries and the fruit trees. What's left now is we have stainless steel cabling, and we're going to cable for 4 cables, and then we're going to attach the branches to the cables.
Right. It's great to see you're doing fruit trees too, because sometimes that's the part of the equation that doesn't get addressed. Right. Looking at it's a long-term investment, obviously, and you don't get. But I think it's important to kind of do this whole sort of thinking in terms. You know us, right? Permaculture, kind of the whole doing a different level. Yeah,
well, right. And but use every available space.
Every available space.
Yeah, and be it as dense as possible.
That's right.
And not hurt the earth.
That's right.
And what's great is that, again, with Russ, I think it's great. I believe Russ thinks it's great. He thought it was great enough to come over on May 13th and commit a good part of the day with some master gardeners and take over a part of the north garden, which is for the tomatoes. So that was a huge help.
Yeah.
And then we have been teaming up on, as far as planting the trellises, both sides. And having one side for the peas as they go, the cucumbers come up on the other side, so the sun, all the different requirements. And
so did you design pretty much the layout, the thinking in terms of just how the entire site would be?
Thinking.
There's a lot.
well, just so you know, Don's farm plan changes daily.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a living document that changes daily.
For instance, right behind you is the new storage area.
Yep.
The fence was actually this L where that black bucket is and over, and we were going outside the gate and into the storage area. And then we said, oh, that's crazy. So we just took down 2 sections and flip-flopped it over to that side, put up the wood fencing, and now it's concealed and it's accessible from the inside. That's the type of evolution of ideas. And as you use a place, no matter inside or outside, you start to get patterns. And those patterns you start to read, and then you start to redesign things. We had the fortunate experience of dealing with the group from Habitat for Humanities, and there were about 10 or 14 people that came in and did the carpentry work. So they built the compost bins. They did all the wood edging. They helped put up some of the trellises. In addition to that, we teamed up with the tech school, the horticultural department, and Bob DeVecchio, and he brought over juniors and seniors for weeks at a time, and they planted the blueberry bushes, they planted the arborvitaes, they did some of the work on the fruit trees. So we've been lucky enough to team up with.
But it really is. You say, it's a work in progress. It's evolving.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So we have. We also learned after the first year that rather than grow a lot of things, we were growing fewer things and more of those things. And through Mary and Patty and Kelsey, there has been a lot of survey work to see what types of things are most used. What they want. Yeah. So we know string beans, and we know tomatoes, we know peppers, but when you get into some exotic things, they're less likely to be used.
Yeah.
They're not real exotic, right, Don?
That's right, exactly. So what we have done now is really begun to perfect, now that construction's almost over, perfect what we have. So like the beans, we started 4 rows, 3 rows, 4 beds, 3 rows in each bed. And then 2 weeks later, we did the next 2 rows, and then 2 weeks later we did another row, and that sort of thing.
And so the produce producer does just integrate it into the pantry in terms of distribution, and so folks can,
Yes, so every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday the pantry is open, and we have volunteers those days to pick.
Okay.
So they'll go through and pick, and for instance, the herb garden straight ahead, and they'll bag up or they'll tie up, and then they'll be brought in to the pantry distribution center.
So whatever's given out on the days, a nominal sum, 10, but the clients would have it at no charge. We've not had success with that as yet, but we are hopeful.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic.
And again, last year was the first full year. There were openings this year. There's a wait list. So
One just cleared.
Oh.
The lottery.
There you go.
So that part's great. Again, once people start seeing, and some people played around with watermelon last year, and everybody was oohing and awing over that. We also decided when the committee, and Patty and Kyle, our son, and Sarah Chase, the 4 of us were the original committee, and we really talked a lot, and we went visiting other gardens, and whether it's Jeff's or the one down in Falmouth, and we decided we wanted to do it so it lasts forever, almost forever. So they're not wooden posts, they're metal posts. And there's a groundhog fence 18 inches down and 1 foot across. All those things are meant to make sure that this part of it stays, and we don't have to do a lot of work on it on an ongoing basis.
Thanks to Citizens Bank and NECN.
Yes, they gave us a great garden grant.
We were their champion in action for 2011, and I wrote the proposal up with Don's help based on the garden that didn't exist then. And we were very fortunate to be selected and were funded, as well as got a lot of publicity.
So are we thinking now about getting some funding so that we can you guys can sit down and sort of write the manual? And I'm actually kind of serious about this. I mean, you've got something here that's very important, and clearly it could replicable, maybe, and as you say, adapting, to wherever you may happen to be. But the things that you've done, the way that you've done them, and the thinking that went into it, and as you say, for the sustainability of it, and for the longevity, and for the, again, responsiveness, that's something that people should know about. And you may not have thought about, but
Kelsey has done some documentation, but I don't know that it goes back to the construction part. It's more on the.
And I have files.
It's something we should talk about. I mean, again, this is an experience that really should be captured and used. We kind of lose. You're so busy. There's not time to, and of course it takes resources. But when you're in the midst of it and kind of going, but there are a lot of people who could benefit. And then what we want to do is, the inspiration is not necessarily to do it exactly like that, but to say it can be done. I mean, we can use our own resources, adapt it to our particular. But It's really, so let's have a chat about that.
I'd like that. I'd like that.
Okay.
And some of the things that we learned from the initial year and before, some of the gardens didn't have paths like this. We decided, because we want wheelchair accessibility, we want to have all the abilities to wheelbarrow and carts and you name it. So we ended up taking space with the walkways, but they I think it's aesthetically very pleasing, but functional, it's been wonderful. Yeah. We can lay things out in the aisles and still keep working in the particular gardens.
And it works.
And and we tweak it here and there. We tweak it.
Yeah. Tweaking is absolutely acceptable.
Now the tomato area, we first year we had 300 tomatoes. Last year we had 700. We feel 500 is a good number because if Russ is right, and I do believe he is right most of the time, it's 5 to 10 pounds per plant. So if we have 500 plants, that's 2,500 pounds. And if we have 10, and last year through the whole garden we got 4,000 pounds, we can get 5,000 pounds just in the tomatoes.
Wow. Yeah.
But what we're going is that we've decided that the ladders are very, very, very functional and easy for us. They pull up, they stack, they last year after year after year. We're hoping over the next year we can get another 250 so that this whole area, or wherever we move it, as we're through the years, that the tomato ladders are the thing.
So tomatoes obviously popular. What are some of the other more popular?
String beans, peas, peppers, lettuce, zucchini, yellow squash. This year we're going to have spaghetti squash, cucumbers.
Did you have some butternut last year too?
Butternut, exactly. And last year this area pretty much butternut, but it basically tied up that area for the whole year. So we were planting on the fence line, and we're doing vertical plantings.
There you go.
And so we're trying to emphasize more and more vertical because the space we have is 1,300 square feet.
Right. But if you start thinking this way,
that's right. That's right.
You can.
That's right.
The sky's the limit, right?
And the interesting thing is, the fence is already there to keep the deer out and rabbits out. Use it. So we've got that to use. And the same thing. This section trellis was put up this earlier this year, and we've got another one going up in the rear. We have put birdhouses up. This is the first year we have so many birds. Barn swallows and
But it's a pest management control.
Absolutely.
You're using a form of IPM.
Yeah. So what we're hoping is that we're putting the word out that we have more birdhouses. I hope if we get 50 to 100 birdhouses, because we'll attach them to the fence lines and more to the trellises. And when people are working, the birds around are just phenomenal. Yeah. So that's pretty.
Put the word out to the birds?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Fantastic.
So let's walk through it.
Yeah. Love to see. Any thoughts of in the future, bees or anything, honey?
Bees. There was another thought and presented, and it's sort of tabled, and it's one of those things that I think over time and the success of this that it could be revisited. We have the ability to put it outside the fence.
Yeah.
So that's something that we'd be thinking of, because all of this stuff needs pollination.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. So you can
but you're playing a balancing act.
Yes.
You're a nonprofit that's doing a great community service. You have to do the right thing, but the right thing in growing is time management. There's a lot of things. You do a lot of things. There's a lot of managing and a lot of time, but the plants need bees to pollinate to have a fruit. And this is all a circle of life. No matter how you look at it,
too, right?
and you need a little honey sometimes.
Yeah.
Little honey
Little
sometimes
sweetness
makes
always.
things sweeter.
That's right.
Look at those beautiful butterheads. Now, where did you get those?
Miss Scarlett's. You bet. Every head of lettuce here that you see, and we're just beginning to pick, and it's just phenomenal.
Beautiful.
They are all from Jim and Susan from Miss Scarlett's. So the peas, you can see they're starting to flower.
Yep.
We're also tapping in with emitters, and we're going to have more pots along the walkway, so we don't have to
Grow bags.
Yes, grow bags.
Which is more, you're going to get more production out of left space.
Absolutely. And would you say you got your irrigation system in? Was it just recently that?
Yes, although it was here for the last 2 years, because we went to wider beds last year, we couldn't get them to come and help during their busy season.
Okay.
So Rich Sylvia has been absolutely phenomenal. and we're down to just adding 3 more zones. And what we have here now is all up and running, so it's all automatic.
Yeah.
I just have to tap in. You can see I have to tap into the drip and put some emitters for these pots. If these are successful this year, we're going to row each walkway with them.
You're dripping, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's all drip
All drip.
except this is the herb garden.
Yep.
And we have a couple master gardeners that are oversee that. And this year we added the 4-foot fence that's for cucumbers, and then sometime in the fall there's going to be a shade canopy that we'll be able to grow on each side of the shade canopy. And then the roof part, actually, we're going to put kiwi. We're proposed to put kiwi,
Yeah.
and they're edible kiwis.
Yeah.
But we want to braid the growth, the branches, and let it be green on top. So then that way the shade
Can actually, yeah.
for that work area, and then the sides will have cucumbers and cantaloupe and whatevers. But look at the heads of lettuce.
Yeah, they're beautiful. Unbelievable.
You know, we have some great heads of lettuce coming up.
Those are good looking.
They are, aren't they?
Good
And,
God.
and it's all from, seriously, one, the advice from Jim of
Yep.
what lettuce to have, and two, the abilities to go over there and pot them up, having a place that they'll be taken care of. It's just made our life so much better.
And so I'm sure I'll get this a little later, but how does it work in terms of the availability for folks who want is it just a list? Do they check off and make a request for the produce?
That's a good question. I think some of it has to do with our historic information of what they like.
What they like, yep.
Second, it has to do with what time of year it is and what's harvested.
Yep.
And third is the numbers that are coming in on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday help dictate how much stuff goes in.
Got it.
But for instance, they would on a Tuesday come out and say they would pick 36 heads.
Mm-hmm.
You see behind you the color tables, and there's a
Yep.
double sink.
Okay.
And the stuffed produce will be washed there and
Now-
bagged up.
Right.
Yep.
Now, just so you know, that is a good agricultural practice, which you guys are practicing, and that's what you have to
With the
practice
double sinks and
with the
the
double
split-
sinks, and
yeah,
that's
yeah.
a very important
Yeah.
part that you've got going on here, because you're doing good agricultural practices
Okay.
under the USDA guidelines and under the state of Massachusetts guidelines, because there's always somebody telling you you're doing something wrong, and you're not doing anything wrong. You're able to wash it, you're able to put it in a bag, and give it to the client.
See, I like to think of it more as providing some guidance.
Right, but
Just some friendly guidance.
right, but you know, and I
I know,
you know, and I know. There's a lot of concerns about
There are.
using fresh produce.
Yes.
Well, you know, if a bird poops on something, they should take it home and wash it,
yeah.
and that might be something that
So
the
there's some
food
common
pantry would
sense.
consider is label.
Yeah.
Please wash your
Yeah,
product.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah.
But when it goes in now, the processing table's there, and you'll see cucumbers lined up later on in the season, and the lettuce lined up, and it'll go into the sinks, and then the bags. And next week, where that trash barrel is, there'll be a 7-foot by 6 foot wide, 7 foot high, and 2 foot deep closet. So that closet will house the scale, the bags, the cleaning utensils, anything that is common for that area. And so that's what that
You
will
got
be.
your own label here now? Do you have your
Label. We've been lucky. Kelsey's been labeling, and we have some.
your logo? Obviously, that little marketing thing there. We'll talk about that too, right?
There we go. Perfect. Perfect.
Absolutely.
And then over in this section, this is our east garden.
Yeah.
And the east garden, it's now 11:15. You can still see that side still shady.
Shade. Yep.
We have. I want to bring that up a little later. So this side has shade through 10, 11 o'clock for about half, just 2/3 of it. So we're planting stuff like lettuce over on that side, because we know as the trees fill out more,
You're going
we'll
to
get them
more shade. Yeah.
more shade, so they'll last longer into
Absolutely.
the. But thanks to Jim again with discussing the black plastic, and then heading over to Eldridge Farm. We this year, which we didn't do last year, and we've been lucky enough to get a grant from Home Depot, and they've been
Seeing that moisture.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've been planting, and there's 250 weed control, moisture control.
moisture control.
It's all drip irrigated underneath.
Yep.
Again, all these things are being perfected by reaching out to Russ and Jeff and Jim.
This is all community based.
Yeah.
It is.
You know,
It is.
You've got all levels of,
Yes.
of individuals here. You have all levels of individuals working here. You have retired folks here. You have some disabled folks here that come and help. You have you have all different levels of financial income and
Exactly.
and you're serving a client base that, for some reason or another, they need few supports. And I can't say enough of it.
I wouldn't be surprised some have some good ideas too, right? Some
And they
folks
do.
come from,
But see,
right?
that's what we leave the door open
Yeah,
because
yeah.
when you talk to people that are actually out in the field and doing it, they have such insight into things. And then you add that they're a master gardener, or you add that from the ag department or something, or the horticultural department at the tech school. You really get that other depth.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but we're hoping to have, which we didn't last year, have 3 plantings of lettuce, and there'll be about 1,000 heads per planting. And again, through the help of Jim and getting the selection, that we don't put the wrong ones in the summertime.
Right, we're
and
trying to use a
exactly.
cold crop in the
Yeah.
spring, a heat-tolerant one in the fall, and then
come
go
back.
back to a colder one.
Colder one, yep.
You know,
Some of the things that we didn't realize is that there's a drainage problem here. There's some kind of a high water table because we had to put that drainage through the middle and put this dry well in, because even this time of year, this was sitting in water. And although this was dug down 18 inches, and right down to sand by the Robert Auer Company, and 18 inches of compost, which was donated mostly by the town of Harwich, and then we supplemented it with some local suppliers, it baffled us. And the blueberries sit in water sometimes. But we've had to add drainage systems. Which
blueberries
we
like
never,
their feet wet anyway.
which will be good.
What farmers do, right?
We also have rhubarb on the outside here, and we're starting to plant the retention pond, and mostly with flowers, because that's another way to get bees here.
Yep, exactly.
As a bee flies by. That was planned.
cue, right?
That's on cue.
Right on cue.
And
I
we,
like
we
it.
do try to recognize that this is our thank you
Wall of Fame.
Wall of Fame.
Yeah.
And from Simple Sign, who made all the signs, donated, including the big one out front.
Great idea. Great idea.
To
They were kind of embarrassed to make a sign for themselves, but we insisted.
yeah.
Yeah. But when you combine it with everything else, it works out. It works out.
So we put the mint and the rhubarb outside, and we're hoping.
You donate a little bit of that to the critters, right? Because that keeps them.
Yes,
Yeah.
happy,
okay.
them
Yeah,
happy.
do a little bit.
Little.
Right.
Plus, I come by at night and steal it. Outside the fence.
But see what's happening to some of the spalliated fruit trees until they get cabled.
Yeah, that's
And
right, yeah.
so we just these
Drop 'em, yep.
5 poles just got put in on the 13th of May. So all the poles are in cement now, and then the stainless steel cabling is going to be ordered next week. The woman I called 2 years ago, she was on vacation, so we'll get the cabling. We'll get it all set, all 4, and that's not for life, but that's close. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
that's
close.
for-
Outlive us.
Yes, exactly.
Definitely outlive. Now, again, remind me, you got Bartlett's. What kind of trees do you have here?
Almost all of them are apple trees.
Apple trees,
About
yep.
4 different varieties. The farm, the Richardson family up in Orleans, donated the blueberry bushes and most of the fruit trees. They've been very, very generous.
Well, yeah.
The team that it took to put this all together and to keep it going, it's amazing. And just by a networking group, Keller Williams adopted this, so we're going to have between 20 and 40 real estate people come next May and help on our planting day. And now, as of last Saturday, we have a whole bunch of community service people from the 4 Cs coming. Those things are evolving, are going to make the sustainability so much easier. And also, as time goes on, replacing me or adding more support to the people that are on the committee, it's going in that direction, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But up to this point, it's really hard because you didn't have as much support to keep it all going. But now we're getting
No,
there.
you're getting there. Yeah. Success does kind of breed that, doesn't it?
Yes,
And
yes.
I think you got to expect that. That's not a bad thing. It's
No,
just what you know.
It just takes time. It's a very good thing.
Yeah, very good. Yep.
This is a new addition. This is the center garden, and by the end of the month, this will be an actual functional garden.
You'll be good. Yeah.
All right. But we just got the water hooked up to the sinks. Last year we had to use a hose to go over that. So, and once the shed, the closet's put where the barrel is,
Yep.
everything will be 100% functioning the way we would like it.
Yeah.
So
There's an
that's,
editorial comment. If I
that's
have
right.
Very excited.
Very excited.
Increased production.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to, on Saturday, here we have spaghetti squash that'll be growing on, we're going to take the 4-foot fence, actually it's right here,
Yeah.
and put up stakes, so there'll be a row of vined squash here. And the rest of it zucchini and yellow squash.
Not too keen on zucchini, but other than that, I think we're okay.
And our blueberry cage. We have blackberries, thornless blackberries, and blueberries.
Yep.
But what we had an unfortunate experience that the blizzard in the wintertime with the snow, and this gets a lot of wind up here, so all the snow filled the mesh of the fence, and it's that tight so the birds don't get in. But it acted as a solid sail, so the wind came through and actually blew some of this down. So we're in the midst of reconstructing this. So we have 80 blueberry bushes. These were donated by the farm, Sassy Richardson and her family. And this will be the first year, as you can see, the number of blueberries. This is the third year that they were in, so this is the year that they're really going to come.
It's going to be one of your more popular.
Yes, exactly. I think people are going to love it.
They'll love it, absolutely.
So once then, the roof on here, we're going to put cross pieces, and everything's going to be screwed in, and rather than just dovetailed in. And
Overhead birds here.
yes, so we have fish netting. It's over in the storage area, and then the fish netting gets rolled over and then tied up, and then we take it off in the fall. So, so that's our garden.
All right.
Wow.
Well, this has been
Fantastic.
I want some personal comments from you as the commissioner. This is Greg Watson, Commissioner of Agriculture for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and this is Cape Cod, your home community.
My home community.
What do you think of the Harwich Food Pantry?
This is truly amazing. It really is, and it fits so nicely and meshes so much with our overall goals in the state to increase access to fresh, nutritious food, especially for those in our population, fixed, low-income folks who are most in need, having now made that important connection between wellness, disease, chronic disease prevention, access to fresh, nutritious food. But I think the other thing it demonstrates is, one, how this can be done and where it can be done. Because I think as we talk, Jim, the perception that perhaps Cape Cod is not a place where you can have this type of vibrant, intensive agriculture. Your demonstration, by the way, not only of what you're growing, but how you're growing, and taking full advantage of the space, doing it responsibly,
right,
intensively, and those two things are not incompatible. I think sometimes you think we're going to optimize the amount that we can get from the land, sort of as almost people think that's synonymous with then you're going to mine the land, and you're not going to do it in a sustainable way. But by integrating, doing all the things you're doing, which again is close to my heart, having spent many years. I came to Cape Cod. My lure to Cape Cod was to come many years ago to work at the New Alchemy Institute. I don't know if you guys remember that, but we were doing sort of that experimental work in organic agriculture and
it was there that you discovered you could feed 13 families or 14 families on an acre.
Tenth of an acre, no pesticides, herbicides, and we were growing, as you know, inside, even with the greenhouse. We were raising bananas, we were raising figs without any backup system of heat. So the demonstration, and this is again what's happening here. We can talk and we can talk and we talk, but we need to be able to demonstrate what can be done, and that's the greatest inspiration.
This is what's happening.
That's what's happening.
And that's why I wanted you here. This is,
and you can tell. I mean, obviously, I'm not that enthusiastic about it, right? Is it? Right. No, this is fantastic. It really is.
This is Cape Cod, and I don't know any place else. We have tons of community gardens, which are great and wonderful things that they're growing for their own personal use. But this here, to be able to supply, if it's just 2 tomatoes a week, the nutritious value out of 2 tomatoes a week is 10 times that than you could get out of a tomato that's been shipped from another country or another state.
And what we really want to be able to do is show folks with the full menu of options that are there available to them. Right. And that can vary depending upon what your resources are, where your land is, what kind of, who's there to help doing it. But this is such an incredible part. And as I said earlier, I really would like to talk to you about how we can do some documentation so that what's happening here, at least others can look at, maybe be inspired by, and learn from,
and imitate
and benefit from,
imitate it.
More than happy to do that.
Absolutely, replicate this, because what you want to see is that this is a very special place. You'd like to see a bunch of very special places cropping up all around, like that little cropping up. You like that?
Yep, cropping up.
All right,
cropping up. Hey, we're going to pick the cream of the crop here this summer.
See, I started something here that I want to.
But
no, I want to thank you. This is absolutely. I had no idea when you said come take a look, and I had some idea what I was going to say. I had no idea that it was going to be this exciting.
And this is just the start. Yeah. Can you imagine Don's going to look as bad as you and I in another 10 years when he goes all the way? He can take all that back there and do all that.
No,
well,
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
You are Mary.
Mary Anderson, the Executive Director of the Pantry, and I'd just like to thank you for coming out here and seeing all that's happened in the garden. As Don explained, it was a mission of several. We had support from the town of Harwich and just about everybody, not just in Harwich, but local communities. This is our board president.
Commissioner Richard Waystack. I'm the president of the board here, and we're here on a beautiful day, getting ready for our visitors to come to Cape Cod. And I want to get across and Jim, all the work you've done to help us. Don has been a visionary in creating this garden, and the key to it is the community that's come together. With over 400 volunteers at this organization, it illustrates one thing for us, though, that we have to keep getting the message across that hunger doesn't take a vacation. And here on Cape Cod, we touched over 9,000 people last year in this organization. And this garden will provide nutritious food for our people, as supplementing the work that's done inside. So we thank Don, we thank you, Commissioner, for coming down today, our friends over at the Farm Bureau for all they've done, and Miss Scarlett's Farm, who's been wonderful to us. We can't thank them enough. And if anyone wants to come take a tour, you can call Mary, you can call Dawn, come take a tour of this wonderful, wonderful garden, or our wonderful organization. And we thank you all for being here today.
And just how would, if we have more people in the community that would like to volunteer or be involved or make a cash donation, how would they get a hold of the Harwich Food Pantry?
They can speak with our executive director, Mary Anderson.
They can call either Patty Watson or myself at 508-432-6519. You can visit our website, thefamilypantry.com, or email us, manderson@thefamilypantry.com. We appreciate all support for financial donations made out to the Family Pantry of Cape Cod, 133 Queen Anne Road, Harwich, Mass. 02645. You can also donate online. We don't miss an opportunity. Thank you very much.
As we end our beautiful first week of June in Cape Cod, the trees are in full leaves. A month ago, we were still shivering and wet, and our roots were cold, and everything was going on. I want to thank you for letting me, Farmer Jim, president of the Cape and Islands Farm Bureau, come into your home this week with a very important issue to Cape Cod. And remember one thing, folks, if you don't do anything this summer, buy fresh, buy local, and if you have to, get fresh with a local farmer.
And on the 8th day, God looked down on his planned paradise and said, I need a caretaker. So God made a farmer.